Part 1 Opening Hook. Fire meets water. East meets west. Imagine this for a moment, a starry night stretched out above you. The kind of velvet black sky that feels endless. Somewhere out there, the constellation of Pisces twinkles, two fish tied together, swimming in opposite directions, symbols of dreams, mystery, and compassion. Now picture, under the same sky but on the other side of the world. Lanterns glowing red during Lunar New Year, fireworks cracking open the dark, and a smiling pig sitting at a feast table, content and generous, inviting everyone to share. Two very different images, right? Yet tonight, we're daring to ask, what if Pisces met the Chinese pig? Would they walk the same destiny? Or are they fated for entirely different roads? And if you're a Leo tuning in right now, my fellow lions, let's be real. You love a good drama, don't you? You can't resist a story where East meets West, where mystery crosses cultures, and where destiny and fate dance in a tug of war. You love to be at the center of the grand narrative. And that's exactly where I'm placing you, right in the middle of this cosmic conversation. See, Pisces and the pig might look like strange companions. One belongs to the world of Western astrology, born from ancient Greek stargazers watching the night sky. The other comes from centuries of Chinese folklore, a cycle of 12 animals each carrying its own wisdom. But both of them, the fish and the pig, sit at the end of their respective cycles. Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac, the final chapter before Aries kicks the wheel back into motion. The pig is also the last in the Chinese zodiac cycle, following the dog and bringing the party to a close. That alone should make you pause, because endings often carry the seeds of beginnings. And when two endings meet, you can expect revelations. Now, why does this matter to you, the Leo listener? Because Leos thrive on clarity. You want to know who you are, what your role is, and how the world turns around you. But Pisces and the pig? They bring a kind of soft chaos, a gentle unraveling of boundaries, where answers are less about what and more about why. And sometimes, that can feel uncomfortable for fiery lions like us. Yet, there's wisdom here, and maybe even a reflection of something we Leos need to learn. So in this journey, I'm inviting you to lean in, not with your claws out, but with curiosity. Let's sit at that cosmic table, where a dreamy Pisces is writing poetry on the napkins and the cheerful pig is passing around another plate of dumplings. Together, they remind us that life is not only about triumph and glory, though yes, Leos, that's our language, but also about compassion, generosity, and finding joy in the simple act of being. This is where our story begins. Fire meets water. East meets west. Destiny meets fate. In the next part, we'll dive deep into the world of Pisces, the dreamer of the zodiac, and discover what makes this sign so profoundly mysterious, and so profoundly challenging for the rest of us to understand. Part 2 Pisces, the dreamer at the end of the Western zodiac. So now that we've set the stage, let's walk a little closer to Pisces. Picture them as the last chapter in a very long novel, a story that has run through the fire of Aries, the grounding of Taurus, the brilliance of Gemini, and all the way through the ambition of Capricorn and the vision of Aquarius. Then comes Pisces, the 12th and final sign, closing the book with a sigh, almost whispering, everything returns to the ocean. Pisces is water, not just a glass of it, not even a river, but the whole ocean. They absorb, they reflect, they flow. They don't just see the world, they feel it. And that's what makes them both so lovable and, let's be honest, a little maddening at times. Because while Aries charges ahead and Leo takes the stage with confidence, Pisces lingers in the background, quietly sensing everything we can't quite put into words. Now, for those of us with Leo hearts, this is a bit puzzling. We roar, we declare, we shine. Pisces? They dissolve. They blur the lines between themselves and others. You ask them a direct question, and instead of a straight answer, you get poetry. You say, "What do you want for dinner?" And suddenly you're having a conversation about childhood memories and the smell of rain. To a Leo, that can feel like spinning in circles, but it's also enchanting. Because Pisces isn't just talking about food, they're talking about feeling full. At their best, Pisces embody compassion. They're the friend who sits with you in silence when you're hurting, the artist who paints the ache of the world, The dreamer who believes, against all odds, that humanity can heal. Their empathy isn't theoretical, it's lived. When someone else cries, Pisces feels it in their own chest. When the world groans, they groan too. But let's also be clear, that same sensitivity can be overwhelming. Pisces often escapes when the pain gets too sharp, into music, into daydreams, into comfort food, sometimes even into unhealthy habits. They're not trying to run away from responsibility so much as they're trying to find a world where the sharp edges don't cut so deep. And for Leos, who thrive on direct confrontation and bold expression, this can look like weakness. But if you dig deeper, you'll see it's not weakness, it's a different kind of courage. The courage to keep feeling, even when it hurts. Imagine it this way, if Leo is the blazing sun, Pisces is the twilight, soft, fading, full of mystery. Neither cancels out the other, they balance each other. You, as a Leo, shine light so the world can see. Pisces? They remind us that darkness can be beautiful too. That silence can be full of meaning. And here's the kicker. Pisces sits at the very end of the zodiac wheel. That means they carry the weight of all the other signs before them. In a sense, they've lived every story, they've fought like Aries. They've built like Taurus. They've loved like Cancer. They've dreamed like Aquarius. So when they speak, even if it sounds like a whisper, it carries the echo of a dozen lifetimes. So, my Leo friends, the next time you meet a Pisces, resist the urge to roll your eyes at their dreamy wandering. Instead, lean in, ask yourself, what wisdom are they holding that I with all my fire might be too loud to hear? Because as we move forward in our story, we'll soon bring Pisces face to face with the Chinese pig. And trust me, when the dreamer meets the bon vivant, sparks don't fly the way you think. They ripple, they soften, and sometimes, they overflow. Part 3: The Pig in Chinese Culture, the Joyful Gatherer. Now that we've wandered through the dreamlike world of Pisces, let's turn our gaze eastward, to the Chinese zodiac, where 12 animals each hold a place in the cycle of years. And at the very end of that cycle, just like Pisces at the close of the Western zodiac, sits the pig. If Pisces is twilight, the pig is a lantern glowing in the dark, soft, inviting, and promising good company. In Chinese tradition, the pig isn't just an animal, it's a symbol of luck, generosity, and abundance. People born in the year of the pig are said to be loyal, honest, and deeply committed to enjoying life. They're the ones who will make sure you've eaten enough, who will share the last dumpling even though they secretly wanted it, and who will laugh with you long after the party should have ended. But let's not mistake the pig's generosity for laziness or simplicity. There's actually a lot of depth here. In the famous Chinese zodiac story, all the animals had to race across a river to secure their place in the cycle. The pig? Well, it came last. Why? Because it got distracted, it stopped to eat, then decided a nap sounded good. And by the time it waddled over the finish line, the other animals were already celebrating. You might laugh, but think about it. There's wisdom in not rushing. While everyone else exhausted themselves fighting for position, the pig trusted that it would get there in time, and it did. For us fiery Leos, this can be hard to understand. We thrive on speed, achievement, center stage moments. If there's a crown to grab, we'll leap first and roar about it later. But the pig reminds us that sometimes, the crown isn't the point. Sometimes, the feast at the end of the race is sweeter when you arrive rested, smiling, and ready to enjoy it. Culturally, the pig is also tied to wealth and prosperity. Walk through a Chinese market, and you'll see golden pig statues, smiling and round, promising abundance. This isn't just about money, it's about fullness of life. For the pig, wealth isn't something to hoard, it's something to share. Food on the table, laughter in the room, a sense that everyone belongs, that's real fortune. And here's where the pig and Pisces start to look like cosmic cousins. Pisces, with its boundless compassion, wants everyone to feel understood. The pig, with its generous spirit, wants everyone to feel cared for. Put them together, and you've got a host who not only cooks the meal but also writes you a poem to go with it. Now, that's not to say the pig doesn't have flaws. Just like Pisces, it can overindulge. Comfort is lovely until it turns into complacency. The pig loves pleasure, food, drink, rest, and sometimes forgets that too much of a good thing can weigh you down. But even in its excess, the pig is rarely mean-spirited. If anything, its greatest weakness is trusting too much, giving too freely, and forgetting that not everyone has such an open heart. So, my Leo listeners, as you picture the pig, don't see just a sleepy animal crossing a finish line late. See a symbol of joy, abundance, and loyalty. The pig may not roar like we do, but it hums with contentment. And sometimes, that's a music the world needs to hear. And this sets us up beautifully for what comes next, because when the dreamy Pisces meets the joyful pig, we're not just talking about personalities. We're talking about archetypes. The mystic meets the bon vivant. The question is, will they dance in harmony? Or will their shadows trip them up? Let's find out. Part 4 Archetypal Fusion, the Dreamer and the Bon Vivant. So here we are, Pisces, the dreamer of the Western Zodiac, meets the pig, the joyful gatherer of the Chinese cycle. Two very different traditions, two very different languages of symbolism, yet when we bring them together, something fascinating happens. It's like mixing wine and water. At first, you wonder if they'll blend at all. But soon, you notice they don't just mix, they create something entirely new. Pisces carries the archetype of the mystic, the soul who feels more than it sees, who drifts between worlds, who whispers truths that others overlook. The pig carries the archetype of the bon vivant, the lover of life, the friend who believes joy is best when it's shared, who understands that laughter and generosity are their own kind of wisdom. Put them side by side, and what do you see? Two spirits who genuinely care. Pisces wants to heal your soul, the pig wants to fill your belly. One brings poetry, the other brings comfort food. One hands you a dream, the other hands you a blanket. And honestly, who doesn't want both? But, my Leo friends, let's not get carried away by the romance of it. Archetypes always come with shadows. The dreamer can drift so far into fantasy that reality feels unbearable. The bon vivant can indulge so deeply in comfort that ambition gets lost. Together, if they're not careful, they can spin into a kind of cozy avoidance, you know. Like when you say you'll just watch one episode of a show, and suddenly it's 3 a.m. and you're surrounded by empty snack bags. That's Pisces and pig in their shadow form, full hearts, full stomachs, but maybe empty calendars. From a Leo perspective, this can be both endearing and infuriating. We admire their compassion, but we also wonder, where's the fire? Where's the drive? As lions, we thrive on vision, on being seen, on moving forward with purpose. To us, Pisces and the pig might look like they're stalling. But here's the twist, sometimes stalling isn't failure. Sometimes it's wisdom. Sometimes, slowing down is the only way to notice what really matters. And that's where the fusion gets interesting. Because when the dreamer and the bon vivant rise above their shadows, they become something extraordinary. Pisces mysticism gives depth to the pig's joy, turning pleasure into meaning. The pig's warmth gives grounding to Pisces' dreams, turning visions into lived experiences. Together, they can create spaces of profound healing, homes, communities, relationships where people feel both cared for and inspired. Picture this. You walk into a Pisces pig household. There are candles lit, soft music playing, and the smell of something delicious on the stove. The host greets you not with a handshake, but with a hug, and as you sit down, you realize you're not just being fed, you're being seen. That's the power of this archetypal fusion. So yes, they have their pitfalls, and we'll dig into those shadows more later. But before we go there, let's step back and look at how these two forces actually interact on the elemental level. Because when water meets earth, when emotions meet comfort, the results can be fertile, or they can be muddy. And that's where our journey takes us next. Part 5 Elemental Interplay, Water Meets Earthly Pleasure. We've seen how Pisces, the mystic, and the pig, the bon vivant, bring heart and joy into the world. But let's dig a little deeper into the elements themselves. Because in astrology and Chinese philosophy, it's not just the signs that matter, it's the forces they represent. And when we talk about Pisces and the pig, we're talking about water meeting earth, emotion meeting comfort, depth meeting abundance. Pisces, as we know, is ruled by water, not just a gentle stream but an entire ocean. Think about that for a moment. Oceans can be serene, reflecting the moonlight in perfect stillness. But they can also be stormy, unpredictable, overwhelming. Pisces carries both sides, the ability to soothe, to nurture, but also the tendency to drown in feelings. Now, the pig in Chinese thought is often linked to the water element too. It's born in the direction of north, associated with winter, with reflection, with cycles of rest. But the pig isn't just about water, it lives in the realm of the earth as well. Think of it, close to the ground, connected to fields, to harvest, to food. The pig doesn't live in the sky, it lives in the soil, where life is messy and delicious. So what happens when all this water and earth come together? Well, it depends. Water nourishes earth, right? Rivers bring fertility to valleys. Rains make fields bloom. In that sense, Pisces and the pig together can create incredible abundance. Emotions feed generosity. Dreams flow into comfort. Compassion turns into shared joy. Imagine a life where every feeling you have finds a safe home, where every tear waters a seed that grows into kindness. That's the potential of water meeting earth. But, and here's where it gets tricky, too much water turns earth into mud. Instead of fertile soil, you get stagnation. Instead of flow, you get heaviness. A Pisces pig person can get stuck in that mud, overwhelmed by emotions, trapped by comfort, too weighed down to move forward. It's like having a cozy blanket wrapped around you that feels so good you never get out of bed. And let's be honest, my Leo listeners, we've all been there in smaller ways. Ever had a Sunday where you promised yourself you'd get things done, but instead you stayed on the couch with snacks, a TV show, and a sense that tomorrow was the better day to start? Multiply that by a lifetime, and you begin to see the danger Pisces and the pig face together. Their compassion and generosity are beautiful, but if unchecked, they can sink into inertia. The balance, then, lies in awareness. Water and earth together can build gardens or swamps. Pisces and pig together can create lives of healing, joy, and community, or they can get lost in avoidance, drowning in too much softness. And this is where our story shifts from elements to philosophy. Because it's not just about what energies they hold, it's about what they do with them. Is life determined by destiny, that higher purpose written in the stars, or by fate? The cycles and circumstances that shape us? That's the crossroads we're walking into next. Part 6: Destiny versus Fate, Philosophical Crossroads. We've just explored how water and earth can either bloom into a garden or sink into a swamp. That image brings us right to a bigger question, one that both Pisces and the pig force us to face. What really shapes a life? Is it destiny, or is it fate? Now, those two words often get tossed around like they mean the same thing. But they don't. Fate is circumstance, the hand you're dealt, the cycles you're born into, the timing of your birth year, the place you grow up, even the accidents and chance encounters along the way. In Chinese thought, fate can feel like the river you're placed in. Its current pulls you in a certain direction whether you like it or not. Destiny, though, is different. Destiny is the soul's calling, the deeper purpose. In Western astrology, Pisces carries destiny in the form of compassion and transcendence. This is the sign that says, you're not just here to work, fight, and consume. You're here to dissolve boundaries, to remember we're all connected, to love without condition. Destiny whispers that there's more to life than survival, there's meaning. For the pig, fate often plays louder. Born at the end of the Zodiac cycle, the pig represents the harvest, the time of enjoyment after hard work. Their fate is to bring joy, loyalty, and abundance into the world. But even here, there's a hint of destiny. They remind us that pleasure, too, is sacred, that sitting around a table with food and laughter can be as holy as sitting in a temple. So when Pisces and the pig come together, you see the dance between destiny and fate in real time. Pisces feels the soul's pull toward healing and transcendence. The pig feels the cycle's pull toward comfort and generosity. And the question becomes, do they surrender to fate, letting themselves float and feast without direction? Or do they rise into destiny, turning their softness into a higher form of wisdom? Philosophy across cultures has wrestled with this. The Stoics said, control what you can, accept what you cannot. Buddhists remind us that karma shapes the wheel, but awareness can set us free. And here's a Leo-friendly metaphor. Fate is the weather. Destiny is whether you pack an umbrella. One you can't change, the other you decide. Now, for my Leo listeners, we tend to side with destiny. Don't we? We love the idea that we make our lives. That we carve our paths with courage and charisma. Fate might place us in the jungle. But we're lions, we claim the crown anyway. Pisces and the pig, though, take a gentler route. They often lean into fate. Trusting the flow, accepting the cycles. To us, it might look passive, but sometimes, trust itself is a kind of power. And that's what makes this fusion so compelling. They live at the crossroads where fate and destiny meet. Asking us, do you let life happen to you? Or do you shape it? In our next part, we'll ground this question in real life. What does it actually look like when someone carries both Pisces' dreamy waters and the pig's joyful abundance? Love, career, family. Let's see how these archetypes play out in action. Part 7 Real-life scenarios. Pisces pig in action. So we've been floating in the realm of philosophy, asking whether Pisces and the pig are ruled by fate or destiny. But let's bring this conversation back down to earth. What does it actually look like when someone embodies both, Pisces' dreamy waters and the pig's joyful abundance? Let's start with love. A Pisces pig person in a relationship is like wrapping your heart in velvet. They're affectionate, deeply loyal, and eager to please. They'll remember your favorite song, cook your favorite meal, and probably write you a handwritten note just because it's Tuesday. Their love is tender, not loud. They don't need fireworks to prove it, they just want you to feel safe and cherished. But here's the shadow side. They can overgive. Sometimes they'll sacrifice so much of themselves that they forget their own needs. They may avoid confrontation at all costs, preferring harmony even when something needs to be said. For their partner, this can feel both sweet and frustrating. It's like being hugged by a warm blanket until you realize you can't quite breathe. Now, when it comes to career, the Pisces pig fusion shows up as creativity with a side of steadiness. Picture an artist who not only paints beautifully but also remembers to bring snacks for everyone at the gallery opening. Or a teacher who not only inspires with compassion but also bakes cookies for the class. They shine in roles where empathy and imagination are valued. Counseling, music, healthcare, design, spiritual work. They're not climbing the corporate ladder with claws. They're building a soft nest where people feel cared for. The challenge? Procrastination. They might dream of writing a novel, but the notebook sits empty because Netflix and a bowl of noodles seemed more comforting that night. They might envision a career change, but they hesitate, afraid to leave the cozy routine they've built. It's not that they lack talent, they just sometimes drown in comfort before the dream has a chance to swim. And then there's family life. Here, Pisces pig individuals often shine brightest. They're the glue that holds gatherings together. The peacemakers who sense when someone feels left out. The ones who make sure birthdays are remembered and tables are full. Their homes are often cozy sanctuaries, candles, laughter, maybe a little clutter, but always warm. Kids adore them because they nurture with patience and playfulness. Parents rely on them because they're dependable, even if a little scattered. From a Leo's perspective, all this is both admirable and a little baffling. We lions roar for recognition. Pisces pigs whisper love into the background. We chase the crown, they chase connection. But maybe that's why we need them. They remind us that not all victories are about applause. Some victories are about holding someone's hand when they're afraid, or cooking a meal that makes a weary soul feel whole again. So yes, in action, the Pisces pig life is a blend of beauty and challenge, a dance between giving and retreating, between dreaming and indulging, and like any dance, it's graceful when balanced, messy when it's not. But what happens when that balance tips too far into the shadows? What happens when compassion turns into escapism? When generosity turns into indulgence? That's where we're headed next, into the challenges and pitfalls that Pisces pig souls must face on their journey. Part 8 Shadows and Challenges, when compassion turns to escapism. In the last part, we saw how the Pisces pig personality can light up relationships, careers, and families with compassion and warmth. But every gift carries a shadow. And for Pisces pig, that shadow can be just as powerful as their light. Let's start with escapism. Pisces already carries the urge to drift away when the world feels too heavy. Add the pig's love of comfort, and you can get a dangerous mix. When life gets tough, instead of facing the storm, a Pisces pig might retreat into a safe cocoon, binge-watching shows, overindulging in food or drink, or hiding in daydreams. It's not that they're lazy, it's that their sensitivity makes reality feel overwhelming. So they soften it with distraction. But if they're not careful, distraction turns into avoidance, and avoidance turns into stagnation. Then there's overgiving. Pisces pig people have such big hearts that they often put others first. They'll stay late at work to help a colleague, lend money they can't afford to lose, or sacrifice their own needs to keep peace in a relationship. Noble, yes, but over time, this pattern can lead to exhaustion or even resentment. They may smile on the outside while silently drowning inside. It's like pouring water from a cup that never gets refilled. Eventually, there's nothing left to give. Another challenge is naivety. The pig in Chinese tradition is honest and trusting, sometimes to a fault. Combine that with Pisces' tendency to see the best in people, and you've got someone who may ignore red flags. They can be taken advantage of, manipulated, or hurt because they want to believe in goodness, even when it's not there. It's heartbreaking, because their innocence is beautiful, but in a world that isn't always kind, it leaves them vulnerable. And let's talk about conflict avoidance. Pisces pig would rather swim through muddy water than fight in clear skies. They fear hurting others, so they swallow their own truth. They keep the peace by staying quiet. But silence doesn't make problems go away. Instead, it can build hidden resentments that eventually spill out in ways they never intended. Now, for my Leo listeners, this might be frustrating to watch. As lions, we roar when something isn't right. We believe in addressing problems head-on. To us, avoidance feels weak. But here's where compassion comes in. For Pisces pig, avoiding conflict isn't weakness. It's a misguided attempt at kindness. They would rather hurt themselves than hurt someone else. Still, even with all these shadows, there's hope. Because shadows aren't punishments, they're teachers. Pisces pig souls are being asked to learn boundaries, to discover that compassion without self-care isn't compassion at all. It's martyrdom. They're being called to balance indulgence with discipline, to turn escapism into creativity, to transform naivety into wise discernment. And when they do, their shadows don't disappear, they transform. Escapism becomes imagination, overgiving becomes service, naivety becomes faith, avoidance becomes gentleness with strength. So yes, the Pisces pig path has pitfalls, but every shadow is also a doorway. And that brings us to our next chapter. What happens when the dreamer and the bon vivant step through those doorways and rise into their higher path, becoming sages of compassion and joy? Part 9: The Higher Path. When the dreamer and the pig become sages. We've looked at the shadows, the struggles, the places where Pisces pig energy can stumble. But here's the beautiful truth. When shadows are faced, they don't just hold us back, they become stepping stones. And for Pisces pig, the very traits that once dragged them down can become the qualities that lift them up into wisdom. Think of it this way: escapism, when transformed, becomes imagination. A Pisces pig who once disappeared into daydreams learns to harness those dreams into art, music, healing, or even visionary leadership. What was once a retreat from reality becomes a bridge to inspire others. Their creativity becomes medicine for the collective. Overgiving, too, can evolve. When they learn the power of boundaries, Pisces pig souls discover that true service doesn't mean self-erasure. It means giving from a place of fullness. They become natural caregivers, teachers, healers, not because they're drained, but because they've found a rhythm of giving and receiving. Their compassion becomes sustainable, not sacrificial. And what about naivety? That blind trust can mature into a radiant kind of faith. Instead of ignoring red flags, they learn to combine intuition with wisdom. They don't stop believing in goodness, they simply become more discerning about where to place their trust. Their innocence evolves into a quiet confidence, a reminder that hope doesn't have to be foolish. Even their conflict avoidance can transform, once they understand that speaking truth can be an act of love. Pisces pig individuals learn to be gentle warriors. They bring peace not by staying silent, but by modeling how honesty and compassion can coexist. They remind the world that strength doesn't always roar, sometimes. It speaks softly, but firmly, from the heart. Now here's where it gets really interesting for us in 2025, what I like to call the year of triumph. All across the collective, we're seeing people step into roles they never imagined, choosing authenticity over fear, and among these rising souls are what many call the chosen ones, those who take their wounds, their shadows, and turn them into light for others. Pisces pig energy is a perfect symbol of that transformation. From softness to strength, from indulgence to wisdom, from drifting to guiding, they embody the triumph of compassion in a world that often feels divided. And let's be honest, my Leo friends, this is where even lions can learn something. We often lead with fire, with vision, with charisma, but Pisces pig shows us another path, the path of quiet abundance, of love that doesn't demand attention, of triumph that doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes the most powerful victories happen in kitchens, in small acts of kindness, in choosing empathy when anger would be easier. So yes, when Pisces and the pig step into their higher path, they become sages of joy and compassion. They remind us that the greatest wealth isn't money, or fame, or crowns, it's connection. And that is wisdom the whole world needs right now. Next, in our final chapter, we'll pull it all together. Same destiny, or different fate? And what does their story invite us, especially those of us with Leo hearts, to remember about our own lives? Part 10 Conclusion. Same destiny or different fate? So here we are, friends, we've traveled a long road together. We've looked at Pisces, the dreamer at the end of the Western Zodiac. We've met the pig, the joyful gatherer closing the Chinese cycle. We've explored their gifts, their shadows, their potential to stumble and their capacity to rise. And now we return to our original question, when Pisces meets the pig. Do they share the same destiny? Or are they fated for different paths? The answer, as always with life, isn't simple. In many ways, they do share the same destiny. Both sit at the end of their respective cycles, carrying the wisdom of what came before. Both remind us of compassion, generosity, and connection. Pisces whispers of spiritual unity, the pig hums with earthly joy. Together, they call us back to what matters most, love, kindness, and the beauty of simply being human. But in another way, they live different fates. Pisces is pulled toward transcendence, dissolving boundaries, dreaming beyond the material world, seeking something eternal. The pig, meanwhile, is grounded in the here and now, food on the table, laughter in the air, loyalty in the heart. One leans toward the heavens, the other toward the earth. Neither is wrong, both are essential. But it means their daily experiences, their struggles, their victories, they unfold differently. And maybe that's the lesson. Life isn't about choosing destiny or fate. It's about recognizing that both are at play. We are shaped by our circumstances, our families, our cultures, our zodiac signs even. But within those circumstances lies a deeper calling. We decide whether to rise into it or drift away. Pisces pig teaches us that softness can be strength, that joy can be sacred, and that endings are really beginnings disguised. Now, for my Leo listeners, what does this mean for us? We are creatures of fire, of drive, of spectacle. We want our lives to roar. But maybe, just maybe, Pisces pig reminds us that not all triumphs come with a spotlight. Some come quietly, in the way we comfort a friend, in the way we forgive, in the way we choose connection over pride. That, too, is destiny fulfilled. As we stand in the year of triumph 2025, this feels especially important. The world is shifting, people are awakening, and the chosen ones, those who turn their shadows into light, are rising. Pisces pig energy tells us, you don't have to conquer the world with force to change it. Sometimes you change the world by softening it, by offering kindness where there was cruelty, by offering abundance where there was scarcity. So, same destiny or different fate? I'd say it's both. Their destiny is compassion. Their fate is how they live it out. And maybe that's true for all of us. So as we close this journey, I'll leave you with a question, in your own life. Are you leaning into fate, just letting the river carry you? Or are you stepping into destiny, choosing how to shape that journey with courage and love? Whatever your answer, remember this. The stars, the animals, the cycles, they all whisper the same truth. In the end, the story is yours to live.